Hi, guys, and welcome to the very first episode of my brand new adventure, Soul and Spirit podcast. My name is Reverend Lexy Hovis, and I will be your host. I have been very fortunate in my life to have several kind of magical spiritual experiences that have led me to kind of this point in my life. And so I think I would like to explain a little bit about me, about, my kind of background so you can get a good sense of who I am. So, I grew up in a very wonderful family, particularly my mother and my grandmother, who really helped kind of nurture my spirituality at a very young age. We would go to my mother's father's side, their family church, quite a bit. I would consider them hardcore Christian, almost Pentecostal. So that would be kind of like my religious kind of background as a young person. And then I would come home with my grandmother, who would kind of teach me some of the things about her Native American heritage that she knew. How to honor the land and how to love the things around me and how everything was connected and sacred. And that felt just as holy to me as anything else, anything I would find in a church or any other sacred place. She would tell me stories about how she picked the house that I grew up in, the very first house I ever had as a baby. She picked that house because she saw fairies playing in the backyard. So I grew up with this really interesting dynamic, right? Of a very hardcore structured faith and yet a very spiritual, nature-based, loving reality as well. They took up residence in my life daily, both of these things, which became very difficult at times. But looking back at it now, it's really helped me to have kind of that structure that I like that church provides with the freedom that spirituality provides. I was able to kind of take both of those things from my childhood and form something new for myself. One of the other big things when I was younger was I would tell my mom about my imaginary best friend that she couldn't see, who I met at the playground that was right beside my house. And I called him Merry-Go-Round because that was his favorite thing there. And the amazing thing is that she didn't belittle me. She didn't tell me that I was crazy or, that wasn't something that was happening or how that wasn't normal. Anything that's probably kind of the standard when a little kid tells you that they have imaginary friends and it goes on for so long. She didn't tell me it was nonsense. She would ask me, what he looked like or what we talked about, but she never told me I had to stop playing with him or talking to him or that it was something bad. That was kind of a really big deal to little Lexi. That really set the groundwork for who I became later in life. And my life continued on very much like that. I had this very gentle guidance from my family who kind of allowed me to figure it out at the time. I remember going to my family's church, watching people get baptized and asking my mom, why am I not getting baptized like, all the other kids in my family? And I remember her telling me that she wanted me to know for certain what my kind of faith was before I decided to do something like that. And looking back at it now, I really appreciate that that was her kind of thought process, right? She wanted me to figure out my beliefs without trying to conform to everything around me. So I still had that. And then we were going to, Amish and Native American doctors, and I was seeing how they used the understanding of energy and intuition to understand things. And so it was an incredible youth that I know is not the norm for probably 90% of the population. I know how lucky I am that I have a family like that because I've always had this really strong gut instinct about when to do something or what to say to someone when they ask me for advice. That little voice that, we hear in the back of our head or that gut instinct, mine was always very strong and loud. I always knew kind of like, this is what that person should do, or they should try this, or like go this way, whatever it is. I knew when something wasn't right with the situation. And My uncle always told me it was because our Native American blood. He would always say, "You know that thing we have, babe? You know that little thing that we can do where we just know stuff, whatever it was. That's our blood. That's our heritage. My family has some Shawnee blood in there. I have some Cherokee blood in there. Who knows what else? Little Gypsy, probably. I've heard. Who knows? It's kind of a big mashup. Looking through my ancestry on top of all the Irish and German and English scattered in there. But I feel very strongly connected to that ancestry of the Native American traditions. And learning about that, again, helped fuel me to create this path that I'm on. Fast forward to about my 15th birthday, it was my present to go up to Chesterfield Spiritualist Camp in Chesterfield, Indiana, for an astrology reading from the Reverend Wynne Shrogi about my birth chart. So the time I was born, the place, all of the things, forms a chart, and he read that to me. He read it like my life. And it was incredible. It blew my mind. Still to this day, I bring it out every once in a while and look at the stuff that he told me and all of the things that have happened and all of the things that he was correct about me. And as someone now who studies astrology and teaches it, makes perfect sense to me. But that really started this path as to wanting to learn more and wanting to get into more of understanding the universe around me and what's really out there. I was always interested in the stars and astrology, and I always knew what my sun sign was before anyone told me. All of those things have always really interested in me. Tarot cards, pendulums, all the woo-woo stuff. That's the fun stuff. But him just being able to pull out my chart, look at my birthday, see where the stars were, the planets were, the zodiac, that was incredible to me. And so after that reading, we immediately went into the Mexican cafeteria on grounds, and it was open because there was a weekend thing going on. And me and my mom, we were immediately approached by the most interesting woman I had ever seen. She immediately asked again for my birthday and then suddenly just started spouting off numbers and information to me like she was kind of plucking them out of thin air. It was fascinating, and I've never seen anything like it again. But I was immediately intrigued and wanted to know what the heck she was doing and how she was telling me all this stuff about how we were connected in past lives and what I was going to be doing for my future, all from just my birthday. And that lady was Reverend Patricia Kennedy. She was camp's top numerologer at the time. She has since passed into spirit, and I still think of her as camp's numerologer. She didn't even top 5 foot, I don't think. Really short hair, really long nails, and just the most amazing personality that you could ever imagine in a person. She just immediately treated me like I was her long-lost granddaughter, and she knew I was going to be a part of her family, and she immediately kissed me, I'm probably sure on the lips because that's the way she used to do it. But she hugged and kissed me and just fluttered on by and went about her day. But she immediately got me into all of these things because I wanted to know how to do that. I wanted to know how to look at a person and just be able to tell them things and just blow their minds like she had blown my mind. And so after that, I got to see one of the Spiritualist All Message Services, which is a totally different service altogether from a typical church service. An all message service is literally 3 or 4 mediums that stand up and give messages from the platform or wherever they're standing, wherever place they're at. And they give spiritual messages from loved ones, guides, just spirit. It was just spirit communication. And again, blew me away. That day was like the most fundamental day as like my path forward. It was incredible to watch. I can't remember if I got a message or not, but just watching people do that. And the effect that had on the people sitting in the congregation and how much hope and joy that it gave them to talk to spirit, to talk to their loved ones, to hear messages from their guides. I was hooked on Camp Chesterfield, and I was hooked on spiritualism and everything that it encompassed. I was 15 years old, and I knew what my path forward was going to be. My life was very much altered that day, and I was always interested in kind of the metaphysical aspects of life, but I really didn't have a name for it, any kind of true guidance. And with my Native American family background, I wanted to search for that more. I wanted to understand the stuff that I had heard my great-grandmother could do, things like that. Learning about the earth, taking care of the earth, and all of the things that could happen. And so I had this connection. I had this connection to the natural world around me, but I needed a teacher or someone really to help me along this path. And that really didn't start until I was able to start taking classes at Chesterfield. And as soon as I turned 18 and I was allowed to take classes, then me and my mom signed up for a full week long of classes. And I began learning about energy and how it's in everything and the world around us, and how to work with energy, how to communicate with the spirit world and connect with the unseen world around us that is very much a part of our daily lives. We just don't really look close enough to see it. Most of us live in kind of the mundane world, and we don't really acknowledge the whole spiritual world that is around us. And to do that, we have to get out of our own way, and that's a lot of times that's our issue. But I do now. I do that now. That is a big part of my life, communicating and living in this spiritual, earth loving world, I guess I could say. It's a huge part of my life. And through camp and through my journey, I have met people who would become my mentors and my closest friends and my family. I have done a lot and seen a lot in my 33 years of life. I have learned so much on this journey to be becoming a medium, becoming a healer, becoming a priestess in the ancient Egyptian traditions. That's a whole other thing. Becoming a metaphysical reverend, and just becoming someone who walks through life trying to connect in with everything around me in some way or another. But there's still so much I want to learn. Every single day, there's something new that pops up, and I'm like, yes, I want to learn that. That looks super cool. There's something in history I want to kind of study or understand. I'm so fascinated. And there's not nearly enough time in one lifetime to really do it all, but I am going to give it my best try to learn all of the things I possibly can while I am here in this lifetime. I want to see and experience and break it down and understand it all. And we are human beings, we are physical beings, but underneath all that, we are energetic and spiritual beings. We are having this spiritual and energetic life on top of this mundane life. And so we need to nurture and feed both of those parts of ourselves. So I tend to live my life like that, with one foot in kind of each world most days. And some days I'm pulled more one way, and some days I have to live fully in the mundane. And it's not good or bad which one that you live more in. That's just kind of part of the journey. I have an almost 2-year-old daughter, so I'm very much stuck in the present world a lot, but I'm also talking to spirit on top of keeping her alive and keeping her out of trouble. I'm talking to spirit all the time and seeing her have her own experiences and helping her on her own journey. To be who she is supposed to be is a whole other kind of spiritual experience in and of itself. They all kind of tie into each other, and it makes this magical, incredible life I live every single day. But there's still so much I want to do. And so this podcast is going to be kind of my outlet for that. That's my next steps on to hold myself accountable, to start learning this stuff and connecting to other spiritual beings along the way. Every time that I do something like this, I sit down and have a conversation with someone about spirituality, or I start reading a new book or taking a class or something, there's always something that kind of connects and opens up to a whole new realm of possibilities for me that I haven't really thought about. And so if you haven't had time to do things like that, but you really want to, I'm hoping this podcast will give you a little bit of that, a little bit of things that you can kind of listen to and weave into your life if you desire to. If it's something that interests you, you can, pick it up and add it to your spiritual practice. And there's no point in doing something unless it's making your world and the world around you better. And that's my goal for this, for sharing my life with you, sharing my experiences and the stuff that I am actively learning and doing. I'm hoping it will help. I'm hoping it will help your life some way as it's helped mine. I'm hoping that we form kind of a community through this. Being human is hard. We deal with so many big and heavy things in the physical world. And if one little thing I say helps you, helps your day somehow, then I've done my job. I feel like I've done my job. Teaching people, helping them understand things, helping them find their own answers, not me even telling them the answer, helping them find their own answers is one of my very favorite things to do. And me helping other people helps me learn 10 times more. And so I'm hoping this will do that on kind of a bigger scale. So I'm hoping to be able to connect in with everyone around me, to connect in with the people having other spiritual experiences out there so that someone else may listen in to what we've gone through and they can see that they are not alone. So I hope you will join me on this journey. Who knows where we'll end up, what we'll talk about, but I am absolutely so excited to get started. So I will see you soon.